You know that feeling after a long winter where you just feel kind of blah? That need to shake off the sluggishness and find some real energy? Well, today we're going to dive into a tradition that's basically as old as the seasons themselves, using spring tonics to wake everything back up.
So let's get right into it. We've all felt that post-winter slump, right? But seriously, just imagine for a second a time before grocery stores. Your winter diet, it's all dried, salted, preserved stuff. For our ancestors, spring wasn't just about warmer weather. No way. It was a lifeline. So the big question is, how did they bounce back and get ready for a whole season of hard work ahead?
Well, the answer was spring tonics. And look, we're not talking about some magical potion here. A spring tonic is a super practical traditional remedy. It's all about using the very first wild plants that pop up through that thawing soil. For people living close to the land, these greens were this massive infusion of vitamins and minerals. The idea was that they'd kind of purify the blood and get your digestion moving again after months of really heavy preserved foods.
All right, so who are these botanical superheroes of spring? You're going to be surprised. They're probably plants you see every single day, maybe even ones you call weeds. But for centuries, these guys have been the absolute stars of the show, packed with everything you need to kickstart your system. First up, a plant that needs absolutely no introduction, the dandelion. I know. Today, it's public enemy number one for the perfect lawn. But historically, dandelions were so prized for their benefits that people literally grew them in their gardens. I'm not kidding. Every single part of this plant is just brimming with resilience and nourishment.
Okay, just look at how much is packed into this one so-called weed. It's a total powerhouse of vitamins and minerals, exactly what your body is screaming for after a long winter. And that old tradition of using it to purify the blood, well, it lines up perfectly with what we know about how it supports digestion. Oh, and its French name, pissenlit, which, literally means wet the bed. That kind of gives you a pretty unforgettable clue about one of its key properties, doesn't it?
All right, next up we've got a plant with a bit of a fearsome reputation. Stinging nettle. And yeah, it absolutely lives up to its name if you touch it raw. But don't let that prickly exterior fool you, because it's hiding an incredible secret. As soon as you cook or dry the leaves, that sting completely disappears, and what you're left with is one of the most nourishing and revered greens of springtime.
Seriously, nettle is the poster child for a restorative tonic. It's just loaded with iron and calcium, which is perfect for rebuilding your body's reserves. And historically, it was so much more than a tonic. During really tough times, like the Irish Great Famine, this was a critical survival food. It has this amazing ability to gently detoxify while nourishing you at the same time, making it the perfect partner for that spring reset.
And the goodness just keeps on coming. You've got wild violets, those beautiful little flowers and heart-shaped leaves. They're not just pretty, they are absolutely packed with vitamin C and were traditionally used for stuff like soothing coughs. And then you've got ramps. The famous wild leeks of Appalachia. They were treasured as this powerful tonic that was believed to help you fight off all those sicknesses that hung around after a long winter. Okay, I know what you might be thinking. This all sounds like great folklore, but what does modern science have to say? Well, it turns out researchers are actually starting to prove what traditional healers have known all along. So let's see how this ancient wisdom stands up to a little modern scrutiny.
And this is where it gets so cool. Take a look. The traditional belief that dandelion is a blood purifier, that lines up almost perfectly with modern research showing it has anti-inflammatory and antioxidant properties. And the idea of nettle being a restorative tonic, you guessed it, science backs it up, showing it's loaded with those powerful compounds. It's just an amazing confirmation of that deep traditional knowledge.
Now, it's important to keep things in perspective here. As this quote from a scientific review points out, even for a super common plant like dandelion, there aren't a ton of really rigorous human studies yet. So, while the potential is huge and is considered very safe, we still need more research. The point here isn't to replace modern medicine, but to see how these amazing plants can be a valuable part of a more holistic approach to our health. Okay, enough theory. You're probably thinking, this is all great, but how do I actually use this stuff? Well, let's head into the kitchen and see how you can bring this ancient tradition right to your table. And trust me, it's way easier than you think.
One of the absolute classic ways to get your spring tonic fix is a simple nettle soup. Honestly, you just treat the nettles exactly like you would spinach. Sauté some onions and garlic, simmer some potatoes till they're nice and soft, and then stir in your nettle leaves and just watch them wilt down. The heat completely zaps the sting. And hey, here's a little pro tip for you. That squeeze of lemon at the end, it doesn't just make it taste amazing, it also helps your body absorb all that incredible iron.
But hey, maybe the simplest way of all is just making a tea. For delicate things like dandelion leaves or even wild strawberry leaves, you use a method called an infusion. It could not be easier. You just pour boiling water over the leaves and let them hang out for a few minutes. It's a really gentle way to get all that goodness and enjoy a nice, warm, restorative drink.
Okay, hold on. Before you grab a masket and run outside, we have to talk about maybe the single most important part of all of this: how to gather these plants safely and sustainably. Because really, foraging isn't just about taking stuff. It's about being in a relationship with the land, and that means we have some serious responsibilities. So let's talk sustainability, and ramps are the perfect and honestly kind of sobering example. Get this, a single ramp can take 7 years to grow from a seed. So if you go and dig up the entire bulb, that plant is just gone forever. The respectful way, you take just one leaf from each plant. That leaves the bulb in the ground so it can come back next year. That one simple choice is everything. It's what ensures that patch will be there for years and years to come.
And speaking of responsibility, safety is 100% non-negotiable. Rule number 1, always, is you have to be absolutely certain of what you're picking. If there is any doubt in your mind, you leave it behind. A lot of edible plants have toxic lookalikes. Ramps, for example, can look a lot like the very poisonous lily of the valley. And it goes without saying, harvest in clean areas away from roadsides or pesticides, and always get permission if you're on private land.
So, finally, let's just think like a caretaker of the land. Only take what you're actually going to use. A really great rule of thumb is to never harvest more than 10% of any patch you find. That leaves more than enough for wildlife and for the plants to keep thriving. Just be mindful, tread lightly, and be a good guest in the ecosystem you're visiting. So to wrap this all up, I want to leave you with this one thought. When you step outside to gather these amazing spring plants, the question isn't just what can I take for myself? The real question to ask is, am I just foraging or am I actually caretaking for all the future generations to come? Something to think about.